Morning to members of the media. Thanks for coming to our Sunday morning media conference today. I know that there are a number of other issues in the Southland which you have to cover, so we'll go straight to it. With me is my colleague, Alenia Bachan, who is the party's public relations officer. I was expecting one other colleague, and he was on his way, the party chairman, but unfortunately he had to return and wasn't able to come out this afternoon. We want to address fundamentally the issue of the two by-elections, the dates for which were recently announced. There's one in Barataria and a second one in Belmont East. These by-elections for councillors in the Samuel Lamontil and Port of Spain corporations respectively have arisen as a result of the unfortunate and untimely passing of the incumbent councillors. We want to address the issue of our participation in the local government elections, in these two by-elections, in the following manner. First of all, the MSJ's position is very, very clear with respect to the importance of local government. It is our view that people must have more and more power in their communities where they live. And for this to happen, there has to be very significant and substantial reform of our system of local government. The position of the MSJ is that for us to strengthen our democracy, to develop what we call the Second Republic, citizens must have responsibility for what is taking place in their communities, and through this they can then feel a sense of ownership of the governance process and of the benefits that can be derived from them being involved in decision making. So local government reform is very, very important for us. It's part of, and it's a key component of the governance reform that is necessary in Trinidad and Tobago as we articulate our position towards the Second Republic. The PNM, in its manifesto of 2015 for the general elections of 2015, put forward that they were going to engage in a process of reform of local government as one of the major planks of their commitments in that manifesto. Subsequent to the 2015 elections, when Minister Franklin Khan was the Minister for Rural Development and Local Government, a process of public consultation was engaged on, and there were several meetings all over the country. Draft documents were prepared for discussion. A team was pulled together of so-called experts, experienced people in local government to provide ideas and so on. And this took place in 2016. The local government elections of 2016 were held in November of 2016 in the absence of the reform, but the PNM government committed that subsequent to the elections that it would be top priority. And during the election campaign, they put forward a number of the proposals that they wished to implement with respect to local government reform. More than 18 months have elapsed since the local government elections of 2016, and not a word has emerged or been uttered from the government with respect to the reform of local government. 18 months, more than 18 months have elapsed, and nothing has happened. This is clearly not just a failure or dereliction of responsibility by the PNM government, but it really signals that their decision, or their promise in the manifesto to engage in local government reform was just that, a promise. And we all know that a promise is a comfort to a fool. And so we have had, in the 18 months, more than 18 months since those local government elections, we have had no action towards actual reform. There's been no document put out, there's no draft legislation before the Parliament for the reform of local government. And so citizens are no more empowered today in the local government process than they were 18 months ago, or they were almost 3 years ago when the 2015 general elections took place. This is not acceptable. And we in the MSJ have engaged the community of Barataria to a certain extent over the last several months. In fact, we began discussing the by-elections internally in the party late last year. And we had several discussions, cottage meetings in Barataria with our activists in the Barataria and surrounding communities in the Sawa region, Sawa Yamatil Regional Corporation, to discuss our strategy towards the Barataria by-elections, which we knew would have had to be called at some point in time. In fact, the very fact that it has taken so long since the death of the councillor to announce the date of the elections is an indication of the fact that the local government system is not working, because it requires now central government and the Prime Minister to decide when that election should be held, rather than it being legally required that a by-election be held within, say, 3 months of a permanent vacancy arising as a result of a death or otherwise illness of a particular councillor. That is what should happen, so that the burgesses of Barataria ought not to be left unrepresented for 2 years, because the councillor passed away, well, not 2 years, but a year, more than a year ago. The councillor passed away more than a year ago. So they were unrepresented for a very long period of time. And that is an indication of the weakness of the system, and the fact that local government really is subordinate to central government if it takes the Prime Minister to decide when a by-election should be held, so that the burgesses could be represented properly by a councillor. So we began to discuss this issue quite some time ago, and we actually did a walkabout in Barataria about 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. We walked most of the constituency, and I myself engaged in one of those walks, and other party executive members led other walks that we did in the constituency or that particular area. And we had a town meeting on the 23rd of May, Wednesday the 23rd of May at the Barataria Community Center. That was actually broadcast on one of the radio frequencies, I-95.5, on the morning of Monday the 28th of May. And we identified a number of issues which burgesses were concerned about, which we thought we would set out as the framework for this election campaign. Before I get to those specific issues, let me say that, having regard to the fact that there has been absolutely no movement towards reform of local government by the government subsequent to the consultations in the course of 2016, 2 years ago, and that there's been no further statement in the last year and a half about reform of local government, we have decided not to contest the Barataria seat, nor the Belmont East seat in the by-elections, which are scheduled for July, for next month. We've decided not to contest those, because in our view, given that this is just a by-election, it is now not the election for the entire corporation, given it's just a by-election, the value added of MSJ at this point would be and is diminished by the fact that the regional corporations are not fully empowered to do the things that they have to do for the burgesses. And that has been coming out in our town meeting. So our town meeting that we had in Carenage last year, the town meeting that we had in Akono, Maracaibo Valley last year, the town meeting that we had in Mount Dore last year, there were many complaints, and the one we had in Barataria on the 23rd of May. And all of those town meetings that we have had so far, the complaints on the ground by people in the community, which we heard echoed on our walkabouts in those communities and in other communities, have been about matters that the regional corporation and the councillors ought to be able to address. Problems such as drainage. In fact, yesterday we had a cottage meeting, a very large cottage meeting in Lavatil, and we again got complaints about things like drainage, about roads that have collapsed and so on. When we encountered the problem of the lack of garbage collection and of other matters such as that. There are many issues that ought to be addressed by local government, but local government has either no resources, they are under-resourced, they have had their capacity stripped away because governments before decided that instead of giving local government bodies the job of doing drainage work, doing road repairs and stuff like that of minor roads, that those things will be done either by central government or given out on contract. So we are creating more and more of a contractocracy rather than allowing the local government bodies to do the work that is necessary in conjunction with their communities. And in that context, therefore, the value added of MSJ being in the Samuel Lamington Regional Corporation in through one by-election or the Pauseway Corporation and so on is diminished. And so we have decided not to contest these elections, these by-elections, and given the circumstances of the total absence of local government reform. And so our campaign now is not, for the next few weeks, will not be about putting up a candidate for Barataria or for Belmont East. Our campaign for the next few weeks is to demand local government reform, because that must happen before local government elections of 2019. It must be a priority that we get real, serious local government reform, which will give real power not only to the corporations, but to village councils, community councils, and people in the communities, because people must have power where they live if we want to have new governance, if we want to have real democracy in Trinidad and Tobago. And so our campaign is going to be the demand for local government reform. Because whether there's a new councillor, whether it's a PNM or UNC, doesn't matter. We're not going to change the price of coffee in these by-elections. The only thing that will change the price of coffee at this moment, or oil, or cocoa, or whatever, is to have local government reform that gives power to the people in their communities. And that is what the MSJ is going to be fighting for. We see not just the trees, we see the entire picture, the entire forest, and so on. The second thing that I want to just indicate with respect to Barataria, having regard to the fact that we did have a town meeting, Community Speaks town meeting, and I want to say that our town meetings are very different. So the meeting that the PNM had last Thursday night in the same Barataria Community Center, you had the political leader and other leaders of the party and government speaking, and the audience just had to sit down and lap it up or whatever and clap at the appropriate times. Our meetings are fundamentally different because we practice a different kind of politics, because we are about giving power to the people. We are about listening to the community and to the people and working with them and fighting to bring about a better life for them. And so in our meetings, I don't speak until the end. We have, and no other members of the party executive except whoever is chairing our meeting speaks until the end. So we first listen to the concerns of the community. And in Barataria, what were some of the concerns? Crime, obviously. And yesterday, Lamington, in our cottage meeting, crime was number one because 3 people were killed on Erica Street on Friday night. And I want to extend my condolences to the families, not only of the 3 people who were killed in Lamington, but I understand from the media this morning that someone was killed in St. John's, was it? St. Charles, just between here, Princesstown area. And so I want to extend condolences to the family of the young man who was killed in St. Charles last night. So, crime, critical issue, was raised in Barataria. And persons raised the problems of transportation, that because of the crime situation, a lot of the taxis no longer want to come down into Barataria South area, 8th Street, 9th Street, 10th Street, 11th Street, and so on. They don't want to come down into that area because of crime after 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the evening. And so we have to address the issue of transportation, safe transportation for people, particularly working people, elderly, young people coming back from school or classes and so on. We have to address the issue of transportation for that community. The issue of crime generally, the issue therefore of the industries and commercial activity that is in Barataria South. South Barataria now is huge commercial activities, Associated Brands, AS Bryden, any number of large commercial operations down in Barataria South. And these big firms now have to contribute as good corporate citizens that came out on our meeting to the community to assist people who are doing fantastic work with young people in sport and in culture and so on, so that our young people could be engaged in positive activities and therefore not get attracted to a life of crime and violence. So we are calling today in support of the community of Barataria for the large businesses that are now established down in Barataria South to put their good citizen hat on, because many of them, as far as the so-called good citizens, are not good citizens at all. They simply want to extract without giving back. So we are saying that those corporate entities that are in Barataria South must give back to the community of Barataria South to ensure that programs such as sporting competitions, cultural activities and so on can be strengthened, revitalized, and we support the work that is being done down in that area by a lot of people. I wouldn't mention the names, but some of them came to our meeting and spoke about the kind of work that they're doing, and we want to support them in that effort. There's the issue of absence of zoning, because sections of Barataria South used to be agriculture. Now agriculture is dying in that area, and we still have some agricultural activities taking place, but what we need to have is proper zoning of our land, so the best agricultural land will be kept for agriculture and not be used for housing and commercial purposes and so on. So the issue of zoning, proper planning is absolutely necessary. And to ensure that there are adequate supplies and proper supplies of water for farmers to use for irrigation and for the growing of their crops, so that they have proper, safe water for the growing of crops. Given the fact that there is industrial activity in the area, we could easily get pollutants and all kind of stuff entering the water that is being used by farmers for agricultural purposes. That is not good practice for farming, for food, and so on. So zoning, proper planning, water, infrastructure, critical to the community of Barataria. And lastly, there's an issue that we intend to take up with the Minister of Works and Transportation, which is that because there are now these large industrial and commercial activities in Barataria South, you have large container trucks and other large commercial vehicles entering the area through very narrow streets where there are residents and so on, and small businesses, and this is very unsafe. People having to walk on pavements and large container trucks trying to take corners to get into the commercial area. The roads are very narrow in some of those areas, very, very unsafe. And so we are calling for opening up of an access road on Lower 6th Avenue, an access road from the highway on the eastern bound lane of the Churchill Roosevelt Highway into Lower 6th Avenue to access that commercial and industrial zone there, rather than the trucks trying to get in from, I think, the 3rd Avenue and then trying to meander their way from 3rd Avenue to 6th Avenue. There's an egress road out of 6th Avenue, Lower 6th Avenue, into the Churchill Roosevelt Highway heading on the eastbound carriageway. There now needs to be an access link road in, and we're going to be following that up on behalf of the residents. So those are some of the issues that were identified by the residents in our town meeting, and we'll be pursuing those issues and, in a sense, setting the agenda for the by-election, because we were there at our town meeting and heard what the community was saying, and so in a sense we are setting out the agenda and saying these are the things that whoever is contesting must address, but fundamentally is the question of local government reform. Thank you.